Hello, my name is Ruby Orf, and I'll be doing my presentation on Diego de Sole, an autobiography. I'll be covering his work as an architect as well as a bit of his sculptural work. I will also be looking at his connections socially and just an overall general view of who he was as a person. About Diego de Sole, he was a Spanish architect who also did a bunch of sculptural pieces as well. He's most famously known for designing the Granda Cathedral, as well as various other architectural buildings. He was born in 1495 in Burgos, Spain, and he lived during the Spanish Renaissance. He's considered one of the best architects slash artists of his era. He was the son of a very famous and accomplished sculptor, Gil de Sole. This is a little background between his family and friends. A lot of his connections during the time weren't really known. In fact, it's not even very clear if his father was Gil de Sole. It's kind of an assumption made by historians at the time based off his sculptural work and just kind of his position in the society. His father, Gil de Sole was a very accomplished sculptural uh, presence at that time, so a connection was made. There is some evidence. It's mostly just kind of a debated topic among historians. Um, Moving on to his friends, we do know he has a good friend named Filippi Bogarni. This was one of the family friends. Later in life, he became one of his best business partners, and they worked on many sculptures together. The most famous being Madonna and Child, which I included later when I touch on some of his works. Uh, he worked with him on a couple of things, but I'd say that was his most famous one. And actually, that sculpture was not even really given credit to Diego. It was mostly given credit to his friend. And that seems to be a reoccurring kind of theme throughout all this. It's very difficult to figure out if he was working on a piece, and if so, if he got proper accreditation for it. Siloe was educated in sculpture in Nepal's. This is where he developed his skills in kind of form and connecting that to kind of architecture later on in life. A lot of artists during this time period, uh, well, I should say, a lot of architects during this time period weren't kind of like solely architects. That wasn't really a career choice during this time. It was kind of like if you were involved in kind of any kind of form making, or you kind of understood how to build things that were essentially beautiful, you would often be kind of presented with architectural positions or job offerings. It was mostly a task instead of like what we would consider what an architect is today. Regardless, Sully was trained in sculpture, and his father, of course, presumably was a famous sculptor. Um, he kind of developed this education. His education kind of led him to this Plateresque kind of combination, which is a combination between Italian Renaissance, Gothic, and Mujar. And that was kind of the style of the time. Whether it's he helped develop that or it was just kind of something that led into that is a different conversation. But I would say that he most likely, or he most definitely, at least added to the movement. Moving forward to his most famous building and what people mostly know him for today, the Granda Cathedral. Um, this was his masterpiece. This is essentially what he is known for. It is a monumentally sized church that was built in the city of Granada. It does incorporate his style that I talked about previously, the plateresque. Um, it was never fully accomplished when he, or not fully accomplished, fully built when he was alive. It was completed after he died. Siloe had so many issues with this building, dealing with the height and trying to kind of tie that to what classical architecture kind of demanded, because again, we're dealing with churches. He had a lot of great ideas because he was trained in sculptural education. He was able to understand form very well and try to come up with solutions that were unique to the problems at hand. For instance, he moved different parts of the church around to receive better lighting, and kind of understood like where is the best kind of what looks appealing but still works. As a sculptor, he had to understand beauty but yet structure, which I think is kind of overall what architecture is and kind of what, or at least at the time, was trying to accomplish. Perhaps one of the most kind of famous parts of this building that Siloe is giving a lot of credit for is actually the door. He wanted to personalize something that he felt the architecture, the most neutral form of architecture that everybody who uses this space will have to arrive at, which is the door. He wanted to kind of build it himself and make it his personal project. And because, again, he's a sculptural background, he was able to carve it himself and add all kinds of meaning and current events and issues at the time. He kind of made it his personal signature, essentially, on the building, almost as if you have a painting, and the artist puts the signature on front. It's that prominent. It is that, like, this is my building, this is my name on my building. It was called the Door of Forgiveness. I have a little sketch right here, and it's kind of personalizing, inscribed with his own ideas of justice and faith, with icons that depict nature and history, alluding to the conquest of Granada. I think it's one of the most, it sets his building apart from other churches that we see at the time. It wasn't super common for architects to add something that they built to the actual building itself, instead of just making drawings for it. It's cool to see something that is a physical object rather than a painting on a ceiling or something. Here's a video that's a tour of the actual building itself. See if it'll play. Oh, it is working. Okay. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but it does show just a little parts of building. So maybe I'll be able to skip around a little bit. This is the exterior facade. Some of the doors, the column work. Yeah, just the interior facade of the building. The stained glass was also a point of interest that he wanted to focus on, just to enhance the actual interior space. He was very concerned with lighting, as you could see. Just a beautiful piece of architecture, really. Sculptural. I'm just gonna let it play a couple of things and not maybe talk over it. Really a sense of grandeur within the building. These wide open spaces that allow users of the building to really connect spiritually, which is kind of the focus of this building. More emphasis on the lighting with the windows, really honing in on certain areas of the space. And yeah, that's pretty much the whole video. Yeah. Here I'm just touching on a couple of his other works. Again, he's a sculptural artist like his father, and so I wanted to kind of include, at least an image of the piece that he's known for, working with his friend Filippi Bacarni. The two created Madonna and Child. Again, this is kind of a point of debate on whether he created it or he was an accessory to creating it. During the time, there's tons of sculptural pieces that we're not sure if he created them or if he was just kind of involved in creating them. We do know other architectural projects that he did do, like the Monastery of St. Giovanni. Yeah. This is just a conclusion of the end of his life. He died October 22nd, 1863 in Granada, Spain. He was actually, I said this earlier, but he was never able to see the completion of his most beloved project, the Granada Cathedral, and it was finished long after he passed. I want to say it was multiple decades after he passed. It was quite sad. And again, I just wanted to touch on that he did so many sculptural works, but we're still just not clear on everything that he did because of the time and the documentation of, like, who did what. So, but yeah, I just wanna thank you for listening to my presentation. The next slide is just works cited, so I'm just gonna go ahead and end the video here. Thank you.